I'm Tom Haley, sports editor of the Rutland Herald. Welcome to another edition of Haley's Comet. And I have as my guest today the man with more hats than a haberdashery. He probably should open one. He is the Director of Public Relations at Green Mountain College. He is the coordinator of camps and conferences. He is the former women's soccer coach at Green Mountain College. He is a talk show host, believe it or not. He has a show every Thursday night on WVNR in Pulteney and a simulcast on
Tom, I like that word.
NYV?
I like that word, simulcast. I hope it hasn't been banned on Channel 15.
In New York State, a show every Thursday called Sports Shop. And for all I know, he's probably also a member of the Adirondack Red Wings Booster Club. Paul Saunders, also serving as Sports Information Director. Just a lot of hats. We're going to touch a little bit on each one. But first of all, what I want to do, because not only all of those other credits I've listed, but also the only alumnus of King Alfred's College that I've ever known. I got to talk to you a little bit about your background, going way back. Obviously, somewhere along the line in your youth, developed a love for soccer. You were the Green Mountain College women's soccer coach until giving that up a few years ago. What about growing? Where did you grow up? Where did you develop, your love for soccer? Just tell us a little bit about that. I think people would be interested in that.
Tom, I got to tell you, before I tell you a little bit more about Saunders, his history.
Yeah.
I know everyone's always asking about my history. What a thrill it is to be joining you today. Thank you very much for inviting me here. I think it's important. You've listed some of the hats and titles and that I've had the opportunity to get into at Green Mountain, where I'm over in Pulteney, and I must tell you, you're the man.
Oh, yeah.
You are really the man. In my efforts to get here on time today, I want to thank my dear friends with the Vermont law officers, state police. Thank you. When I mentioned your name, when I said I was going over to see Tom Haley for his Haley's Comets, they said, "You're the man. You go."
Well, I don't know if that's good or not.
So, and my history, where to begin? And if people are listening, is this going to be broadcast to St. Albans immigration?
Probably not. They might miss us.
Probably best.
The closest we'll probably come to that is the police academy in Pittsford. But
well, we'll do our best. You mentioned King Alfred's College. It's in Winchester in England. I went to school in Winchester, and there's a school system in England's a lot different to the States, and I sort of grew up through the system, and it's, I would say, far more, there's less flexibility, less opportunity to get involved in different subjects and areas. But when it comes to the sports and extracurricular stuff, the sky's the limit. You really are in charge of what you want to do, and there's no stopping you if you enjoy any particular kind of sports. I think the offerings are a little more selective in terms of the variety.
Right.
When I was at school, and this was at grammar school before I went to college, I went to King Alfred's College is primarily a teacher training school, and it has an enrollment, or had an enrollment of around 1,500. So it's a fair to middling size, 1,500 teachers. So you kind of figure you got a lot of smart people there, with exceptions. I grew up, I enjoyed my sports, rugby.
Right.
I got a kick out of rugby. I really enjoyed that. Soccer, football, obviously, as they call it in England.
Right.
And cricket. And as I've told you before, who else but the English would name a sport after a bug?
Right. But I'll tell you, a colleague of mine, Chuck Clarino, recently made a trip took a vacation in Trinidad and Tobago, and cricket was just phenomenally big there.
Cricket's huge.
The West Indies were playing, and all these teams, and he said it was unbelievable to see a high-level cricket match. How fast it is. It was just he was intrigued by it.
It's confusing, and a lot of people say watching cricket is a lot like watching golf. I think you really only know how exciting it is if you play it.
Right.
To sit in an armchair and watch it on TV, it could be deadly.
Right.
But cricket games can go on for 3 or 5 days, and that's a lot of cricket.
Right.
but in England, Australia, New Zealand, India, Pakistan, New Zealand, Trinidad, the West Indies, it's huge. It's their first #1 sport. It's the equivalent of baseball, football in the US, basketball. In England, cricket, soccer, rugby are the 3 big sports. They're the sports you grow up as a kid playing. When I went to college, I played cricket and soccer. They were my varsity sports. And you know, the kind of thing that sometimes when I talk to students across here in the States and tell them a little bit about sports in England, and the one thing they have a hard time understanding is that unlike here, where you have coaches at the high school at every level, in England, I mentioned earlier, you're really on your own. If you want to have a team, if you want to play, you got to do it. It's like that Nike slogan, just do it, because no one's going to be there to teach you, coach you, and show you the way, teach you the ropes. You've really just got to decide, I love to play, and get out there. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, because it teaches you a little independence. And
I think so.
I think it builds character, I think, because you have to deal with the ups and downs, losing, winning, and you're only as good as you decide you want to be. And you blame yourself. You know, I used to say to a lot, when I used to coach soccer at Green Mountain, I was there when I first came to Vermont in '86.
Now you actually came from, was it Georgia?
I was in Georgia for a year. And this is where, if you're watching from St. Albans, I love immigration. You're my friends. I came across to the States originally with BUNAC, and that's a wonderful exchange program, British Universities North American Club, BUNAC. And I was a student then. I was 16 or 17. And
this was where, in Georgia?
This was when I was in England. I was still in England, and I saw an ad in one of the national papers saying, if you'd like to work at a summer camp, you know, just get in touch. And I sort of went through that process, and I ended up placed in Massachusetts, in the Berkshires, a couple of hours away, and in Lenox, and that was in '79. My first summer I came over.
And what was your first impression of America then?
Let's put it this way. I arrived at Kennedy Airport by myself, fairly young, never been to the States before, and I arrived in the evening. My first night I spent in the Sloan House YMCA in downtown Manhattan, about 5 blocks from Madison Square Garden. And that night, my first introduction to the States, there was a shooting in the elevator. Some guy in a wheelchair was mad as hell about something else, and he blasted some guy.
Wow. Welcome to America, huh?
Get to my room. I thought, well, this is little Starsky and Hutch. I can handle it. Get to my room, open the door. I remember this was the YMCA, late 70s. Village people. I thought, well, this is great. I love it. You know, this is America.
Already explaining a lot about later on, but we'll get to that.
And bugs everywhere. Talk about cricket. There were cockroaches everywhere. I thought, well, this is okay. It can only get better. Then I went to Times Square to watch a movie, and I didn't know what Times Square was all about. Let's put it that way. And I don't really need to tell you anymore. It wasn't the movie I was expecting to see. So it did get better, and I had a wonderful time. I spent 3 months here. And then I came back every summer since.
Oh, really?
Working at camps. I worked 9 years
Soccer
at the
camps
camp.
Or
primarily it was an all-sport camp. We had about 350 youngsters at the camp, and I sort of learned the ropes that way of camping, in which is one of my real loves now, to work with youngsters in camps. And it's a lot of fun, and I had a blast, sort of, and I got to meet a lot of good people. And I got to see a lot of New England, and that was kind of a roundabout way. Even though I went to Georgia, I got a job offer to teach down in Georgia at a private boarding school, and that was a little unusual. It was run by the Women's Club of Georgia, the only school in the state operated that way, and that in itself was an experience. Not as bad as the Sloan House, but it was different. And then I ended up, I visited Vermont when I was in the Berkshires, so it was a natural sort of jump for me to come up to the Green Mountains, having been down in the Western Mass area.
Now, when I listed all of your credits,
you missed one.
Well, I don't know what one you have in mind. It could be any of 100 probably, but I can't believe that I missed the one that we at the Herald most frequently associate you with, which is the public address announcer at the soccer games and the basketball games. and you definitely have your own unique style. And the one I like best in basketball is when there's a travel, and you take the microphone and you go, too many steps.
Yeah,
I think that's my favorite, but
Tom,
everyone has their favorite.
That isn't always too popular with the visiting teams. You know, the one thing
I'll never
about,
forget that one day you mentioned that. I think it was Atlantic Union was getting angry at you.
With
They
the
were
man.
looking daggers at you as you were
They were.
going through your inimitable style of
Yeah.
public address announcing, and I'm thinking, you know, in this world we do have to be tolerant of one another. We honor their
any nationality.
Seventh-day Adventist faith, and we allow them to be in the Mayflower Conference and not play any games. What is it, before sundown, 6 o'clock on Saturday, or whatever their
Exactly.
faith is? So they should be tolerant of too many steps.
I kind of think so as well. I think what really bugs them, what really gets under their skin is, and I try, I'm very trying sometimes, especially with those folks. I talk about trying. What's the fella at Johnson State with the badges?
Oh, Buddy?
Buddy Mahar,
Yeah.
my
yeah.
friend.
Yep.
With immigration, I've got Buddy, and they love me. And Buddy, when he visits the Eagle Dome with his badges, a very, very good
He's
program.
the men's basketball
He's
coach.
the men's basketball coach. And Buddy, if you've never seen Buddy in action, he's worth the trip just to see him. Forget
Right.
the basketball, watch Buddy, because he is a side act just by himself. He entertains.
Yep. He's quite a
and
story in himself. He was the coach at
He's
Columbia
good.
at one time.
He knows basketball.
Right.
He really does.
Absolutely.
And some people, perhaps who aren't familiar with hoop, they'll come in and see Buddy jumping up and down along the sidelines, and he'll come down to the head table and say, Saunders, Saunders, cut it out. Actually, he doesn't quite say that, but you don't want to hear what he says.
Right. Family show.
Family show. But and you go Atlantic Union, all those people. But when I get to the line, and I love my sort of at the line. Can I give you a demonstration, Tom?
Oh, I wish you would. I was going to
Perhaps
ask you for one.
Justin Wiener, West Rutland, one of our
Right.
star players, a junior on the men's basketball team. And Justin, last year, he gets all the rebounds, and he's great from the free throw anywhere inside. He's sort of our center out there, and in the forward position. And he'll say, or I will, at the public address, Justin Wiener, at the line. Now, this isn't the one. I can do better than this. Wiener. Remind me about cricket in a moment. Wiener. Shooting two.
Oh, yeah, perfect. It's just like I was there.
We
yeah.
need a drum roll.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, one of my favorite bits of commentary, and I hope this one, Michael, our wonderful engineer, if you're listening, edit this out later if you need to. I remember I was watching cricket once. I love commentating. I hope one day I can really, you talk about the Red Wings, I always go across to Glens Falls to watch them in action, and they've got a first-class announcer across there. And if I can just come close to the quality of his presentation, I'd be
He's really
doing
good,
well.
huh?
He is first class.
And I know
He's-
you've done, not to
he's
interrupt,
good.
but I know you've done some Pulteney High School, is it?
With the girls' varsity
girls
team and
soccer
JV.
on the radio.
On the radio,
Live,
the
play-by-play
Blue
of when
Devils.
they got in the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, and I went all the way up to Randolph,
Right.
where they had the state championship game in Division 3
Right.
last November. And that was exciting for us. That was really my first taste here of working on radio.
Right.
And that kind of opened the door a little bit to, you mentioned earlier, I've got the little sports shop show.
Right.
And I must tell you, jumping around a little bit here, do you know what my new slogan is?
No.
Maybe I could give you a scoop here, Tom, announce it on Haley's Comets. It's Sports Shop, and it is a radio call-in show, remember?
Right, it is, I know.
It's not a touch on Jack Healy's. He is the master of
In
all
fact,
sports
I was a
talk
guest on
shows.
that show, the last guest before Paul Saunders, when Keith Harrington
Keith
still
Harrington. It was kind of like me being Jay Leno and replacing the master when Keith left. You know, he was the Johnny Carson of Lakes Region sports talk shows. And my new slogan. See what you think of this one. I'm trying to come up with a real creative teaser, a catchphrase,
Right.
publicity,
Oh, yeah.
something
Madison
that would really
Avenue, yeah.
help the
That's right.
ratings, because
Right.
they're low. Very low. Sports Shop with Saunders, the only sports talk show where he guarantees you won't get a busy signal if you try to call in.
Oh, I like that.
Do you think that might be?
I like that.
The last one I had got my wonderful station manager, decided that it wasn't what she was looking for,
okay.
image-wise. It was something, this was actually, I think I debuted this one, or debuted this one, as I like to say in England, round about my Valentine's Day special. And that was my sort of, I think this is another one of my job titles. I'm director of Losers in Love.
Oh.
But that's a whole nother show in itself. And this was around February 14th or so. And I had this new slogan. I announced at that show. It was, I, Paul Saunders, I'm your captain of love. But that went nowhere fast either. Ratings still, they went low.
Well, I think you're going to get the ratings up, and you know, I mentioned to you our viewing area, of course, being Rutland City, Rutland Town, West Rutland, Brandon, Clarendon, and so forth. That area, I do want to mention the kids that are really standouts over there from this immediate area, and you mentioned Justin Wiener already in basketball, and of course you have from Rutland High School, Ron Booth,
yes,
had an outstanding season
soccer.
in men's soccer, and now in softball, by way of Rutland, she moved midway through her high school career, but Sharon Katz, I think she moved to Ballston Lake, New York, but she had a phenomenal game the other day, struck out 7 in 5 innings and got the victory. So you are getting some athletes from our viewing area going over there and really excelling, and of course there's just outside our viewing area, but people nonetheless that our viewers are familiar with,
yes,
like Don King from Manchester, Shauna Eastman from Hartford High School. So you're getting some good athletes from our area, people that are familiar with, and it's a good way to create interest among fans.
It is, Tom. You know, I think Hartford, Alamar Brown on the basketball team,
exactly.
a junior too,
Yes.
first-class
Brown.
person, and we're just, I think with our coaches, we're fortunate at Green Mountain that we've had tremendous support from our administration. President Pollock retired last year.
Right, and
new president
he was
was Tom
a fixture.
Benson.
He was at all the games.
He was our biggest fan.
Right.
Winter or summer, he'd be there supporting the Eagles.
He was there in the rain at soccer games.
He went up to Lake Placid with the ski teams, and he went to Georgia when I was soccer coaching in '87.
He was a real fan. I mean a genuine fan. Not the kind of guy that we all both know that used to be the president at Castleton State that knew his way to Kansas City. He was a big wig in the NEI, but he couldn't find his way to Glenbrook Gym. That's what we always say about old Lyle. But
Lyle, we love you.
Lyle, we love you. Your heart was in the right place, but we still got to get you that map for Glenbrook Gymnasium. I know the people will be glad to see you, but President Pollock, he was always there.
He was a genuine fan from the heart.
Yeah.
He loved, and he cared about the individual student athletes.
Oh yeah, Eddie Matz has told me that so many times. Right. What a wonderful thing it was to be playing soccer and always look up and see that familiar face on the sidelines and know that he was your president and he cared. Wasn't it great to see Eddie the other day?
I tell you, it was fantastic. Wheelock College athletic director.
Yep.
He's coaching assistant men's soccer coach at Northeastern.
Right. Exactly.
And we're through it. He graduated late '80s. He's already in our Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Talking about local people.
That's right.
You can't leave out the Saints AD, men's basketball coach.
Rich Conover.
Rich Conover, another GM grad.
Absolutely. I know Rich and Ed had a good time when Ed was here over the weekend with Wheelock College.
Tom, this might be the moment I have to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
I know you've had Rich on the show.
Right.
I don't believe you've had Ed on.
No, I haven't, but I told him about it. He's got a standing invitation, yes.
He is, and well, I feel I mentioned earlier how excited I am to be here. And I want viewers to know I am the first athletic staff person from Green Mountain to be on your show, I believe.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Thank you. It makes me feel more important than I probably should.
I think that's an honor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk some of our student athletes.
Yeah.
We haven't got enough from the area on our teams. I think Green Mountain, we're not a state school, we're a private school.
Right, and I think you told me when I was visiting the other day that the figure is about 10%.
Close to 10%,
of
very
in-state
close.
students,
Indeed.
Which is probably up, though, right? I mean,
it's
you're going
gone
in that
up.
direction.
When I first got there, maybe if we had 4% in-state Vermont students there, we were lucky. I think Shauna Orban, the Fairhaven grad, was one of the first students I recall we brought in as a student athlete. She started off playing soccer.
She had a great career.
She did
Dawn
very
King's
well.
career has been fabulous.
Dawn King,
I don't know if you could have a better multi-sport athlete than
three-sport,
Dawn.
soccer, basketball,
Yeah,
softball,
she's been just tremendous.
and a standout.
Yeah.
She really is. Right now we're trying to recruit Ali Jesser from Mill River.
Right.
A great player. I saw her and her sisters in action.
Right.
When they played Pulteney Blue Devils in basketball this winter.
Yep.
And
Careful now, don't get in trouble with the NCAA compliance director.
NAIA.
That's probably you.
Yes. It might be one of my new titles. I haven't checked today. I'm like a yard sale, Tom.
That's Matt Bassett's title.
He is.
Down
You
in
know,
Quinnipiac,
talk
NCAA
about
compliance
you did,
director.
the Herald
Another
did a
former
wonderful.
Green Mountain staff.
He's at Quinnipiac.
Right.
He's their assistant men's basketball coach, and you know, interesting tie-in here because when Matt was at Green, this is Matt Bassett, the former men's basketball coach for Green Mountain. He left Green Mountain. He was Sherlock's assistant back in the mid-'80s.
Yeah, Bob Sherlock,
who went to Castleton. It's a small world.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Bassett went to Syracuse for 2 years with Jim Boeheim as an assistant, graduate assistant.
Yep.
He went all the way to New Orleans in the Final Four with the Orangemen. Then he came back for 3 years and led our program at Green Mountain. And then when he left to go down to Connecticut at Quinnipiac, guess who came aboard? If this was Jeopardy, I'd be Alex Trebek right now. Your time is up.
Okay, go ahead.
Matt Dempsey.
Oh, right.
Dempsey, and he's a Castleton grad.
Yes, that's right.
And now we've also got Crispin White. He's our assistant men's coach. He's been there for 8 years now. Dempsey's been there. He's
There's
going
all
into his
kinds of
seventh.
crossovers between these
There really
three
is.
schools. I mean,
And Debbie Raven
Deb
now,
Raver is the one I was just going to say.
Another Green Mountain grad. She's your at Castleton, the women's soccer coach
and,
for 3 years.
Tanya Rayholm is with Eddie Matz down at Wheelock as his softball and
from
field hockey coach
a Spartan
from
down
Castleton.
in Boston.
Right.
I think it's a networking like that, the wonderful thing. For example, this recently where we had the softball sort of triangle with St. Joe's, Green Mountain, and Wheelock.
Right.
Eddie bringing them up, and the Herald mentioned you got the exclusive there that Wheelock are going to be in the inaugural, the first ever women's basketball tournament.
That's going to be exciting.
This winter at Green Mountain, and
that's right.
I was talking with Dempsey yesterday, Tim Dempsey, and I want our listeners to know if you're looking for a lawyer, our men's basketball coach is Matt Dempsey, our women's is Tim Dempsey.
Dempsey and Dempsey Law Firm.
But they're not going to help you with any legal matters. Everything's legal at Green Mountain. When it comes to athletic stuff, trust me.
That's true. That's
Famous
true.
last words those could turn out to be. But they're not related. That's my point here. But they've been there a long time. Tim's going into his 7th season this fall with the women's soccer and women's basketball team. And he's also going to be taking a trip to Tennessee.
That's right, with women's soccer and a trip to Florida with women's basketball.
In January next year.
So he's going to be doing a lot of fundraising.
Specifically, you know what's going to really help him?
What's
in
that?
recruiting. I think right now to try and get that perhaps higher quality student athlete coming across to Pulteney, from Rutland County even, we've got to be competitive. And I think we've got to upgrade the quality of our programs.
Oh, those trips are definitely a recruiting enticement. And I think, you already have great athletes in women's soccer, and you already do very successful. But you're right, if you have that little extra recruiting enticement, you might get to that next level that helps you to play with the Georgian Courts and the Seton Hills and those NAIA powers, that you're going to meet in the regionals and
or
in
even
the nationals.
Even some of the Vermont schools, in the Mayflower Conference where our teams compete. Apart from skiing, they're in a separate division. We've got 9 varsity sports. Lacrosse is almost there. It's almost there. We're playing.
It's still a club sport.
It's still a club sport officially, just because the NAIA doesn't sanction lacrosse. We compete on a varsity schedule, I think. And
compete well.
They do well.
Beat Keene
They
State,
beat the Spartans the other week. In fact, we've got some. I think we've got a rematch with Castleton later on this month. The 27th, I think, is a Thursday probably. And we're competing against April 27th at Castleton, afternoon game. And that's always a tough one. Anytime we play that local rivalry, the Castleton, the St. Joe's even, in basketball especially, they're beginning to
It showed this year. They almost beat you.
They did.
I think it was a 1-point game.
It was a single-digit game.
And that's just that makes a great rivalry. One thing I want to touch on, because I know this is something that you personally are very proud of, and that is the improvement in recent years between both the relations of the community in Green Mountain and I think Pulteney High School in Green Mountain College. I know you do you guys are pretty tight with Dave Catman,
Exactly.
the athletic director, football coach, et cetera, another guy with all those hats. And, you know, and in the community. And I think that's very, something very important because it is, you know, a small place and you can use each other's resources.
Yes.
And so, you know, just, you know.
Tom, I think that's such a good point. And it's going to sound like a cliche, and it's going to sound like you got the PR director sitting here or something. But I've got my MSJ Mounties hat on, Rutland hat on.
Right.
Thank you, Tom. Every guest gets one of these to keep, and we want to be a part of the community,
Right.
not apart from it. That's
Right.
so important in any way we can, helping in the schools, in the community, volunteering, making sure that we don't have a sort of invisible gate around campus and that everyone knows they're welcome.
Right.
And together it's easier to achieve a lot more. It's like team,
Yeah.
T-E-A-M,
Yeah.
together everyone achieves more. There's no I in team. And I think athletics, academics, whatever it is,
Right.
cultural stuff, we've got a lot to offer, and the community has also,
Yeah.
that they can share, we can share
Absolutely.
with them.
Well, you know, I noticed when you played Westbrook College in basketball this year, it was a packed house. And I looked into
It
the
was rocking.
stands, and I saw Dave Catman, and I saw Joe Minoff,
Yeah.
and I saw MSJ basketball coach Leon Wood, and I saw another Rutland resident, former Rutland High girls basketball coach Mike Caligieri, and just
He
a
was
lot
there.
of people that weren't connected with the college
I
were
know.
there to see the game.
We don't charge for our basketball games. I like
Right.
to say it's the best ticket in town.
Oh, I think it is.
You know, and I don't want to pick on Spartans listening out there, but I know when they come across to the gym, they love it because they're expecting to pay $1 or $2 to get in.
Right.
I think it's the least we can do just to make everyone feel invited and part of, you know, and take advantage of anything we can offer.
Yeah.
And Joe Menoff, he last week was over at the Civic Center watching those Red Wings.
All right.
They weren't flying very high. They
No.
weren't hot.
They're in the playoffs.
But they made it to, they're
Playing
going
the
to play
River
those
Rats.
rodents.
They're playing the River
from
Rats
Albany
tonight, I think.
tonight, and then
Yeah.
they got that 7-game series. They're going to
Yeah.
struggle, but I'm a hockey nut, Tom, and it's one of the
But
things
you
I
never
enjoy.
know. There's a lot of Calder Cup in their history,
is.
so you never know. You never know. That's right. You one
get
thing that
over- I
came with
get over
this coming to Pulteney and Vermont, you have become a big hockey
I
fan
have.
and a big Adirondack Red Wings fan.
And perhaps I can just publicly announce right now that it's official. Chris Gilmore he's our athletic director at Green Mountain College.
And
Tom,
men's
as you know.
soccer coach,
Men's soccer coach.
the perennial powerfully
He's been there 13 years.
Yep.
He's a legend.
Yep. In his own
At
mind,
least he tells me he is. In his lunchtime. And he's been banned from the Civic Center after his performance just recently.
Really?
Over there, yes.
Really?
Anytime he goes across to watch those Red Wings in action, what happens?
They lose.
Yes, they
Ah.
lose.
He hasn't had that effect on his soccer team.
They've done well lately, yeah.
Yes,
And
they have.
Chris, if you're watching this, I'm just joking.
Yep. Just don't soften that schedule
But,
anymore, Chris.
Tom, I've got to ask you a quick question. I know we're going to be wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
I happen to, and by the way, the Rutland Herald is my favorite paper.
Well, it's one of mine, too.
It is?
Yeah.
I clipped this out of the Herald. MSJ Parents and Friends Club presents Green Mountain Donkey Basketball. I know MSJ, I've got their hat on. I see some of the donkey people who are over there riding the donkeys. That are, of course, Jack Healy, the wonderful Jack Healy.
Yeah.
Chuck Clarino,
Right.
a colleague.
Yeah.
AJ Marrow, and I wish I'd known about this. I'd have gone just to see AJ on a
Yeah,
donkey.
well, absolutely. That must have been a great treat.
Where's your name? Why weren't you there?
Well, I'm not an MSJ alum.
Okay.
They both are.
Okay. But that's good. I would have liked to have seen you on a donkey.
Oh, well, maybe someday.
We had the Green Mountain Donkey people over at the at the Eagle Dome, and they're fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They're a lot of
Well,
fun.
maybe I'll do it there someday. But we're coming down to under a minute here, so I just want to say thank you very much for coming by this morning. And
Tom, is this being televised?
this is being televised.
It is?
Yes, it is.
So, wait a minute. That's why Mike Valentine wanted to put makeup on me then?
That's right.
Okay, I thought for a moment being on a love couch, maybe, I don't know. I'm sorry.
But you got really quickly, we probably got 30 seconds. You got a big thing coming up. The senior game, something that's
Yes, in
become
September.
instantly identifiable with Green Mountain College. You've been the host for the senior games for what, a lot of years
This will be
now?
the 12th annual year. This
Wow.
September. It's either around mid-September,
Yep.
14th, 15th. It's a Wednesday usually. And
Now, Chucky
Artis Smith,
Clarino will be there as usual, covering
Chucky,
it for us. He
AJ,
loves
they're
it.
all over there. Vito
Yep.
gets over, takes a
Yep.
picture of the runners, and we have a blast with them. We have about up to 300 seniors attending,
Great.
and competitive, non-competitive. Everyone, get in touch, come over, visit us, say hello. I'll be wearing a hat. I don't know which one. arms.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Paul, and
It's a pleasure.
making sure you get over there to the senior games or the 55 years and over and see what different hats Paul
You're
will be
welcome,
wearing.
Tom, to join us.
Okay, I'll be there. I try to get over each year. And please join me again for the next edition of Haley's Comet when our guest will be the Assistant Executive Director of the Vermont Principals Association, Burns Page. Thank you very much.
You're the man.